I'm GP.
And I'm Paulie.
Welcome to the Happy Class. Hey, Paulie, what kind of weekend did you have?
What kind of weekend did I had?
I know it's Friday now, but what kind of weekend did you have?
I had a great weekend actually. Yeah, yeah. Any
Can you
weekend that
remember it? It was 5, 6 days ago. I see in those eyes you're glancing off, going, "Weekend. I had a weekend once in my life. When was that?"
I
So,
did. Well, so it was interesting because the company that I'm working for actually gave yesterday off to everybody because it was World Mental Health Day. So they shut down the company for a day. So as a result, I kind of had a day off, kind of a mini vacation day, or kind of started my weekend early. I was back to work today. So I've had my weekend and then I had like a mini.
mini health day.
So that's what that glance
I,
was.
and
That
it
was
was
like,
so healthful you can't remember anything that happened before it.
I
Good.
know.
Good
Yeah, yeah.
God.
Well, it's kind of like, the way they say when you walk into a room and you're going around the house and you walk into a room and you say, oh, wait, what did I come here for? Because as we pass through doors, our brain basically just reprocesses things, and that's kind of how we do things, right? Our brain is like new room, passing through a door, right? And so weekends and days off and everything are quite similar, and especially getting a Thursday
Ah,
off, you're like, so that's what that glance was. It was like, wait, so
okay. So I asked about the weekend, not the day off.
yeah,
Was
the
there a
week
preference? Which one was more fun, the 2 days off weekend or the one day in the middle surprise?
the weekend was, well, yesterday was good, but the weekend was fun. Anything that, for me, of course, that involves soccer makes me
Was
extremely
that
happy.
was you in soccer?
That was me in soccer. I was also coaching, so I coached my whole
Ah, double.
team. Yeah, so it was great. How about you? How was your weekend?
Uh, well, my weekend was fun in the sense that on I woke up in London on Saturday. Well, I mean,
Was that intentional or?
no, no, I didn't know you were going to ask that. I asked you about. No, I woke up. My wife and I took a holiday, and it's a story no one needs to hear about how long it is. But basically, at the end of a few weeks of traveling with my wife, um, I invited my daughter to meet me, and my wife had to go back and run a show, so to meet me in London. So she flew to London,
Ah,
and we
cool.
spent a week together. And last Saturday was our go home day.
Right.
So, um, but um, but we didn't leave London until the afternoon. So, have you ever seen the movie Notting Hill?
Yes, I have.
Yes. It's a darling romantic comedy. Da, da, da. We were staying in Notting Hill area, so and the market is the Notting Hill market is the strongest on Saturday. It has all the different things on Saturday. It's pretty much 4 or 5 days a week, but
Mm,
Saturday's the big day, so we held off, even though we were near it, until Saturday. So I spent Saturday wandering the Notting Hill area with my daughter, who we were just looking at little stuff here and there and she was buying stuff for my grandkids. So, it's kind of, so that's how I started. Then I had the dreaded 11-hour, flight to San Francisco from London.
yeah.
Um, and then my wife picked me up. Of course, it was still, time change. It was still 6 in the afternoon here. So we
Yeah.
went out to a sushi dinner since I hadn't had any sushi for, I don't know, 6 weeks, 7 weeks while we were in Europe.
Yes.
Um,
No, that
and
feeling.
so, that was pretty good. And then since I hadn't been at the house here in a month and a half, Sunday was all fixing all the stuff that kind of breaks while you're gone. That includes, things that didn't get watered by the watering machine. It's like they're
Yeah,
near
yeah.
dead or they're dead, and just everything. So Sunday was a putz round day, and the good news, the reason I'm smiling is nothing really bad happened. So
Mm,
going away. I've come home. I've come home to water down. So
yeah,
coming home
yeah.
after 6 weeks when the house was actually for this time there was no one here, so the house was empty, and everything was fine. course, my wife had been here for a week, so maybe it was one of the reasons she had picked up
Maybe she
everything.
came
I don't
home
know.
to a complete disaster, but it was all taken.
No, no, she might have, yeah, but I didn't get to. I didn't have to. So I had a great weekend. What are you talking about? Yeah, yeah, I could do that again. I mean, it was fun. And I'd never been to Cambridge. You know, there's all these a fun thing to do. Everybody has different things of fun for happiness. I watch. I think we talked about this one time. Since you're Irish, I watch British music. I know it's kind of not Irish. British music, British movies and television shows,
Hmm.
which get rerun on all of the Hulu and all of these. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
BritBox being one of them. And there's several of the shows that come out of Cambridge or Oxford, which looks pretty much the same. So it was kind of fun to wander around those old places and pretend that I was a student again, and, you know, having a great time. And so, you know, it was a great holiday. And I did a ton of walking, which is good in two ways.
Hmm.
Uh, it's actually good for you physically. Obviously, everybody
Yeah.
sort of knows physical activity is so usually good for you. And because I did so much of it, I felt good about myself. Ah, I'm such a stud. I did a lot of walking. I mean, come on, you know.
It's one of the easiest things to do, I think, that we overlook. Um, it's one of the things that I there's a place that I love to go near me, which is a trail. And you and I we've talked before about getting out into nature, whether it's just a bit of gardening or getting out to the beach or a trail or whatever. And it's so easy. Like I used to run this trail, and then over time with injuries and stuff like that, I kind of stopped running. And then I was like, I'm just gonna walk. And just walking, it does like it just does something for the head and the heart and the soul in terms of your happiness.
It's I know you see lots of people out, uh, at least in the San Francisco area, you know, especially on the weekends, walking. But I don't think it's anywhere near the number of people who could walk and would get something out of it. You know, if I were advising the audience something to add to their lives, it's carve out some time to walk. And whether that's just opening your front door and walking where you live, or, you know, getting a transportation and going someplace that you think
Yeah.
might be more fun to watch, it doesn't matter really. I
Although
think
I
it,
will say, if you're going to open up your front door and you're going to go for a walk and you live in San Francisco, you better make sure that you live near like Golden Gate Park or something, and not, not on some of the hills that are
ah,
down there. I mean, I mean, if you, of course,
well,
great cardio, but it's a
I
very
was going
different
to
kind of
say,
walk.
so we have a thing called Windy Hill. It's a place that we go on occasion.
Hmm.
Purposely, it's a very steep hill. Um, and I've walked the steeper hills in San Francisco. I mean, if you the first time you do it, I'll give you a story. You know how occasionally we have stories.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, I got a house on the beach in Malibu. It was a
Hmm.
fun experience, which I loved. And I thought one of the things that it could happen while I was there was I could get myself in better shape.
Yeah.
So
Always good.
it was when I first started living there. It was September. Weather was gorgeous, perfect time. I get, you know, bare feet because it's sand. Put shorts and a t-shirt on. I'm gonna nail it. I walk out of the deck. It's walk down a couple steps onto the sand, and I start running down the beach. And I made a couple of early mistakes there. I'm going to point out even before I finish the story is I probably should have gone closer to the water where the sand is not quite so soft.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And in the future, I did go down near the water so that the sand was a little more firm. But this first time out, I was in the dry sand up near the house. So I ran past, you know, my house and the next house and the third house. And when I got to the fourth house, I was so tired I turned around and walked back. Okay. Um, and I think at this point I'm like 40 years old.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I'm in reasonable shape, not great shape because otherwise I,
Yeah.
but you
Decent
know, I'm
shape.
not feeling like I was so out of stamina. So I can describe I lived there for 4 years, and after a while of running on the beach, I would do 3, 4 miles up and down the beach, not both ways, but round
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
There was a the Malibu Pier was about, I don't know, a mile and a half away. So I'd go to the pier or past it, depending on how I felt. So I got to be in shape. It didn't take forever, but this story came up into my brain because that's the advice I would give anyone going up a hill. Don't think you're going to race up to the top of, Nob Hill in San Francisco if you haven't been doing it. Just don't be embarrassed. Just go half a block and walk back down and go home.
It's like those the programs that have become quite popular is Couch to 5K, right? And
Ah,
there's like a
is that an actual term, couch to 5K?
Couch to 5K, yeah. So it's a
I'm
program
so
that
out of it. That's so cool. I love that
yeah, it's
logo.
been around for at least over a decade because I remember I kind of came across it and I used it for triathlon training, believe it or not. Like I had been running, but I needed something that would help me with interval training, right? So interval training is when you jog and then you speed up for 200 yards and then kind of go back to your jog and stuff like that and improves your aerobic and cardiovascular system. So yeah, the couch to 5K. So it reminds me of that is, you can essentially start off 2 to 3 times a week where you go and you don't go and just do a 5K, you start off and
Yeah.
you do half a mile, and maybe you're walking and then you do like a run walk and then you increase the distance. And so I think maybe it's about a 6 week, 4 to 6 week, I think it's about a 6 week program typically to do a couch to 5K. But
And
yeah,
and
but the,
you again, it's one of those things that I know everybody writes about it, so I'm hoping it's true. It is for me. It's when you do these things, every time you do them, like every day or twice, whatever you do, there's a little high that comes at the end, a happiness high, if you want to call it. It's not, it's
absolutely, yeah.
yeah. And I like the way that you feel good about yourself. I did it. I mean, I exercised 5 days a week in the house.
Hmm.
The walks are extra, but in the house. And every time I kind of grunt my way through, and half the time I'm like, no, there's no one there. Okay. No one's recording me. I'm doing it just because I want to
Yeah.
do it, which is for me the hardest thing. I mean, if no one's telling me to do it, why am I doing this? But every time I finish it, when I do that last rep of lifting the weight or on the bicycle and the last minute goes by or whatever part of my exercise program I'm doing, uh, and I'm done and I'm going to go to the shower, I walk down the hall much happier than I started down, the hall to my exercise bike. When
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, walk down, it's like, and when I'm walking back, I already did something. Yeah, it's a little bit along those lines of the study that was people who make their bed in the morning are
Yes.
happier than people who don't.
Hmm.
Like, wait a minute, you know?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
and it's true.
I
It's
and I there's a lot of writing about that article that if somebody wanted to look it up, they could. But I think they're all quite similar in the sense of, the one that about making your bed in the morning is you start out with a success.
yeah.
That's one of the many things that comes from that activity. You feel good about yourself. Did a success. Da 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 da. Got something accomplished. And certain things give you that, like making your bed, whereas maybe brushing your teeth doesn't. But I don't know. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, whatever. But making your bed, just like you don't have to, but you do, feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's just a small little thing that kind of sets off your day, but certainly the exercise piece is huge. Be it
I,
or whatever.
and then even the people who because we've done a lot of walking talk, people who are disabled, and I've talked to a couple of them in the wheelchair, and they do their own exercise program. Them obviously the legs are not part of the program, but it's just they
Yeah.
get the same. Everything's the same. Okay,
Mhm.
doesn't actually you don't have to go walking. Okay, is what I'm trying to say. You can pick something else, but you know, in the sense of the show is the happy class. It's one of the most universal, easy things to do. Something physical that is helping your body, and then you feel good. The
Yeah.
the mental happiness springs in. Uh, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's so did you do any you were playing soccer, so you felt good about the weekend? Is that what you were going to tell me earlier before we changed topic?
Yeah. It was, I mean, anytime I get to do that, I mean, soccer or football, as we would call it, of course, is as you know, is a massive passion of mine. So if I'm not playing it, I'm watching it.
This crowd you play with, since you're in Southern California, are there your other Europeans on it? Are you the only one with an Irish accent, or how's the mix?
No, it's funny. So football has been a tremendous vehicle for me in terms of getting connected with people. So when I lived in the Bay Area, having moved from Ireland, I played indoor soccer for a while, and I met up with a bunch of expats and ended up on a team of expats, and then an outdoor team. And it was very much the same down here in SoCal. Was during COVID, when everything was shut down, there was a group of guys that used to play soccer tennis at a park. And I just walked up and I was like, that looks fun. Can I play? Which, as a like we say this to our kids, like if they're at the park, we're like, go make a friend. And the kids are just like, oh, what do you do? And they just start playing.
Yeah, yeah.
As a grown up, like it's hard to make friends and meet people and stuff like that. So football has been a great vehicle for me to do that. So I got I met a bunch of guys, great bunch of guys here in SoCal, and then we ended up getting connected to more, and now I play on this team where it's like guys from the Netherlands, Belgium, French, Irish, USA, English, it's a whole bunch of guys just all just playing the game. Yeah.
So that was part of the enjoyment. And who were you coaching?
I was coaching my son's team, so he plays in a little league. So it's more of a rec league for the kids, just kind of learning how to play the game and get out there, and yeah, it's great, it's great for them. Like when we're always, I mean, I have so many soccer balls around the house and stuff like here. Like there's always a ball somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I try to explain sometimes to um, some of my friends who uh, that I grew up with who haven't spent time with a bunch of well, they spent most of their time with other Americans,
Yeah, yeah.
and many countries around the world. I'd say most, but I don't really know that. But many countries around the world, there's only one sport, and it's football slash soccer.
Yeah.
And in America, we don't understand that because we have football, which, American football, which, is a big deal. But there's also baseball, which at one time was more popular than football. So, and then we have basketball, which is
Yeah.
not that far off from the other two as far as attendance and viewership and popularity. And then we have, soccer and tennis and golf, which
And
kind of,
hockey.
yeah, and
Hockey's
hockey,
hockey's a big one too.
which are all, important to certain groups. And in Europe, those big three are rolled into one thing called, football slash soccer. And it's all year round, and it dominates so much because the other ones are the little sports for the most part.
Very much so. Yeah.
And so therefore, when you talk about your sport, which we call soccer, it's really you're talking about all three wrapped into one. It's something you played year round and indoor,
Yeah.
outdoor. Yeah. Uh, and so it's hard to sometimes explain that to people.
Yeah, it's interesting here too because like in many ways as a country as dominant in the world as the United States is, should be much higher up there in terms of soccer. And
Oh, given the population as well, yeah.
given the population, but what you have is like kids will play, like growing up here, like they might dabble in a little bit of soccer, and they might play flag football, and they might do baseball and basketball and whatever. They might be a multi-sport kid, or do two of them or something like that, or do one in one season and one in the fall season.
Yeah.
As they get to like 12, 13, 14, they start to specialize. If they're going to stay in sports, they specialize in typically one sport. and soccer is usually not that sport, right? Um, and so that's it's a big challenge. Like if they want to, if the U.S. Soccer Federation wants to become more dominant as a country in world sports, like that's
Yeah, because the Irish soccer team is putting its best athletes on the soccer team,
yeah.
whereas we're spreading them around on three, four to five different sports.
Yeah, well,
And
we had a. It's funny with the Irish soccer team. We had a golden period, where
you know, God, it's like talking to anyone at any country. Oh, let me tell you about our golden time.
oh
Go
yeah,
ahead,
well,
go
and
get
the
in.
golden time for us was
Yes,
we had a lot of times where we got almost there, like almost got to the World Cup, almost got to the European Championships, and so um in the late 80s we hired an English former pro who had won the World Cup, Jack and Bobby Charlton, tremendous players when they were playing. So Jack Charlton took over the team, and with the grandparents rule, brought in a bunch of players that were playing professionally in England, many of whom were English, like
Do
English
do you mind
English.
explaining to the audience the grandparents' rule on World Cup? Because I'm sure there's a couple of listeners who were going to go, the what? You
Yeah.
had a bunch of old people playing?
No, not exactly. So we if you had Irish grandparents, you could qualify to play for Ireland.
And one Irish grandparent would do, right? You don't need two.
Correct. One would suffice. And so we had a lot of players that, the team would be there, the national anthem would be played, which is in Irish, which is in Gaelic, right? Is
Yeah.
and the camera would pan along the team, and like very few of them would be singing it because they wouldn't necessarily know it, but we had these players, and we that led to our kind of golden age or golden period where we got to the European Championships, we got to two World Cups, and we took a fair few scalps and stuff, and so now we're back in that time where we're almost getting there, but we're not. We've had a few players that played for Ireland when they were youth, in the youth
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
that
Youth.
now, yeah, youth. I always
Youth.
think my cousin Vinny
Yeah.
that.
The
But
plural of youth is youth.
did you say youths?
Youth.
Um,
You don't, there's
so,
no, yeah, there's no S on youth.
but
Youths. Youths. The
the
youths are doing, I don't think so. Maybe there are. I don't know. We're going to get
went
the
on to
hate mail
do.
from the English majors. Go for it.
This is the problem, because I was an English major, so I should actually should know
So
that.
you're in charge of responding to the hate mail we get.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, that's okay.
So these players ended up, they quote unquote defected, and now they play for England. So Ireland played England recently, and those two players, Jack Grealish and Declan Rice, were playing for England, and so every time they touched the ball, they got
Mood.
booed. Yeah, to which they responded by scoring. So yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's the golden age of Irish soccer and the grandparents rule. But yeah, football is it's brought a lot to me.
I'm listening, so there's another topic that came up that I sent you a note on, uh,
Oh,
which
what we were
was
texting about during the
with
week.
pardon?
We were texting about this during the week.
Well, I just said that I'd been asked this in different ways. One thing maybe that the audience knows, I have seven grandchildren who are currently between the ages of 6 and 17.
Mm-hmm.
And that means they all talk and have questions, because there's a 7-year-old as well as a 6-year-old, and the 7-year-old is the poster girl for will not stop asking questions until you're out of sight. Okay. I mean, she might yell it. And one more thing, GP. But anyway, um, so one of the concepts came up. This was with the high school kids. You know, should you live your life like there's no tomorrow, or should you live your life with the idea that there's always another day?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I sent you that note because it's it's a good philosophical question that you kind of hope your high school kid never asks you, because Okay. All right. So envision, there's a 17-year-old girl. She's thinking about where to go to college. She's a senior and she hasn't picked the place. And she says, you know, how do you approach that, GP?
Mhm.
Hmm. So,
Yeah, it's an
yeah,
interesting one. So I have I have I have a few tattoos, as you know, and one of them is it's in Irish. It's on my shoulder,
I
and
mean, Gaelic Irish?
yeah.
Yeah, real Irish.
Yeah, real Irish, proper Irish. And so
Proper.
it says is ummi loss a kill uring, which means it's many a day we will spend in the grave. And so to that point, in terms of do you live for just today or for kind of future you, I got that tattoo because it was very much that reminder of like, just do it, just do it, just live like live as hard and kind of as fast as you can, and because tomorrow is no guarantee.
You're not promised tomorrow. There's like 500 cliches we can throw into this section now.
Yes.
Get your
Yeah,
cliche dictionary out because people have talked about this topic a lot.
there's no guarantee. And so at the time when I got that tattoo, of course, it's permanent. It's still a good reminder.
The tattoo is permanent, but maybe the thoughts aren't.
It's funny, right? Like, it depends. For me, it very much depends on the situation. Like, as I've grown older, I definitely still have a lot of that in terms of don't be fearful, don't be anxious, just go for it. But then there's also the man. I really could do with bumping up my finances for retirement. You know what I mean? So there's kind of more cautionary sense, I suppose, that comes up. So, but again, it depends on the thing for me.
Well, I guess listening to you, one of the things that you're in the background indicating is, uh, since I love math, is a math calculation where the older you get, the more you realize that the number of days that are left is not infinite. So
Yeah.
the
Mm.
I can do it, you know, uh, I can repair this damage. Don't I can do it today. Don't live like there's no tomorrow because when tomorrow comes, I'll
Mm.
fix it, and I got all the time in the world to fix it. You brought up retirement, so when you know put your retirement savings on a meme coin that doesn't make it in the crypto world, uh, you kind of regret that, and you know it is to me it's a really kind of a wonderful topic for thinking about what is a way to um, make decisions. I So in that Happy
Mm.
Class book, which got us started in this anyway, there's that point is not in there. There's a point similar to it in which I say at some points in my life when I'm trying to decide something, I envision my life as a book. We may have
Mhm.
talked about this more than once. I envision my life as a book, and I'm of course the main character in my book, and the rest of you are just secondary characters. I'm sorry, Paul. That's and so as I'm reading this book, which is of course my life, and now that I'm looking down on my life, I'm not pretending to read about my life. And there's the main character is going to do something. He's either going to get a good night's sleep, or he's going to go to that wild party that he doesn't really know if he should go to or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as the reader of the book, you know, yeah, and sometimes the reader of the book's going, hey, he's got a big test tomorrow, and that test is more important than having a couple of beers with his buddies. So go
Mhm.
to bed and get a good score. But sometimes, that decision is pretty like, go for it. Go have a good time tonight. Go to that party that you're not sure that the girl, I mean, you don't really want to see her again because, if you see her, she turned you down for this. And so you're going to be embarrassed when you see her, but you really she didn't really turn you down permanently. So and you're all worried about it. Just go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that leads me to another one of my favorite ones, but the cliches that I repeat. I can tell you the answer if you don't ask the question. The answer is no. You're not going to get a date with a cute girl unless you ask her.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so go for it. That's, at some point, and that's not always true. I mean, sometimes it's better to wait, especially when she's standing next to her boyfriend who's 10 times bigger than you are.
Who outweighs you by like,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's in my envisionment. I'm looking up. You know, yeah. So, but it's uh, the question of like there's no tomorrow is again, what's the carpe diem, right? Seize the day.
very much so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I said, there's been a lot of philosophers on this topic, and I think your comment is that sometimes it seems right to seize the day, and sometimes it's get a good night's sleep,
Yeah.
save the money.
I think some of it too, maybe as you go through life, you collect experiences. And so that can also color
Oh, you mean
your
the scars on my back from bad
battle
decisions?
scars, yes.
Oh, those
And so
scars.
that will color your decisions too, because you'll go, okay, should I go and do this? And it's like, well, what happened last time you did this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let me give you another. This might be actually helpful because it's another thing I learned from who knows where. And that is, and this was meant more financially, but it can be done in other circumstances as well. Um, and when I advise people on finances, I sometimes tell them, when you're about to do a financial decision of some nature,
Yeah.
especially investing, I say, can you afford the loss?
Yeah.
It's, what happens if that stupid meme coin that we were doing in crypto 10 minutes ago? What happens when it drops to zero and you don't have any retirement money? Can you afford that loss? And if
Mhm.
the answer is, oh yeah, because I'm going to get this, okay, you've wiped that off. Now it's like, yeah, go for it. But when you're looking at that sketchy company that runs the bungee jump, at the Hoover Dam, and you're going to drop down 300 feet and hope it doesn't snap, and you're looking at the rusty equipment they have, and the guy looks like he's had 3 beers before he ties you in, you probably can't afford that thing not to work.
Yeah.
So, it's not just financial. Getting on a scary roller coaster at Six Flags, your odds are pretty good that you're not going to get, I mean, there's always errors, but, you know, those statistically you should let go. But, it's it's a calculation that I often make. I mean, um, I'm again partly because of what you said, my years of experience. It's a little like the driverless car. Going back to a topic that we talked about before this show officially started,
Oh
due to the
yeah, the
fact that
Waymo. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the Waymo car. So I had since I took my first Waymo ride a couple months ago, I met with some of my old friends from high school. We get together once a year in the summer back in Wisconsin, and I mentioned that I had taken this ride, and there were several of them. Okay, there's 15 of us who generally get together. There were not half, but close to half said I wouldn't get in it. I'd be worried.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And the way I would, if I mean, I didn't argue with them because why? But if I were arguing with them, I'd be saying, I look at the data. Those driverless cars
Yeah.
are much safer than the normal taxi and Uber driver. Okay. Statistically, these are the safest rides you're going to have.
Hmm.
So get in. Not that
Yeah.
every ride's safe, and it's what the airline industry did when it was having trouble like 50, 60 years ago when nowadays, when's the last plane crash in America where somebody not a private but a commercial jet landed and killed people in America by crashing? Can you remember the last one?
Probably. Well, commercial
In
ones.
America, not an American plane out somewhere else.
No, no. Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind, but just
Anyway, let me finish my story, and then you can come up with
the
that.
one in
My
San
story was,
Francisco, the one in
pardon?
San Francisco, the one in San Francisco airport where the tail clipped.
When?
Like 8, 9 years ago.
Tail clipped?
Yeah, on the approach, the tail clipped the
And
right.
people died?
Yeah, yeah. So people died. The back of the plane came off, and unfortunately, some people
Was
had.
I must have been on vacation. I don't even remember this.
I think you might have been, but it was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so back when there were actual crashes in which the everyone in the plane dies and it's headlines on every
Yeah, yeah.
newspaper, the airline calculated that you were 5 or 10 times safer on an airplane than a car ride per mile. And they just beat you with the facts.
Yeah.
If you have to go, from New York to Chicago and you're going to either take a car or you're going to, take or a plane, which of course was saved you 3 days of driving or whatever. It's much safer on an airplane, even back when they were crashing,
Hmm.
you know.
Statistically, yes. So statistically, yes. And you can do all the statistics, and certainly on like with Waymo and driverless cars, statistically, it can be safer. But I think there's something too, though, in well, in a couple of things. I think there's something statistically as a person in handing off control, like you're not the driver. And so the same with a plane, you're putting your faith
Well, total trust in that idiot that
in that
ran into the
pilot,
mountain in
you know.
Switzerland about 10 years ago, too. He
Yeah,
went nuts and decided to commit suicide with the rest of you in the back.
yeah.
Or my favorite death joke, which I'm going to tell, even though it's
Oh
more.
no, this is not going to
I
make
want
me
to. I want.
more.
I wanted to die like my grandfather died in his sleep. You've heard this one, rather than the screaming passengers in his bus.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So go ahead and teach me why I don't want to have a sleeping bus driver to
Well,
scare. It's
yeah.
handing off the responsibility for your safety.
I think there's an element of that, and maybe we
Oh,
don't
I
have.
think so too. I totally. These were, these friends of mine are not, they're normal people with normal fears and lives and they weren't like, oh, I want. They were, I wouldn't do it. And I, that they've had their laptop computer crash on them a few times or whatever, and so their faith in software technology working all the time is appropriately not. It doesn't work all the time.
Yeah,
Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, you are handing off, you know, the whole experience to some piece of software that, some idiot who was, drinking too many beers was coding. Oh, I got a deadline. I just plug this, that'll work, kind of thing.
yeah. Just put just
Actually,
pat.
all that programming is being done by another computer program that programs now. So there's no human even in the programming.
I was talking to a friend recently who was they recently moved from being like an individual contributor more into a management role. And they said one of the reasons why they did that is that they actually loved coding and loved being hands-on, but they realized they were writing code less and less. And more often than not, they were just kind of explaining what they needed it to do and just hitting tab. And it was generating the code for them. And
Yeah.
they went,
Yeah.
okay, I need to change here because they could see the writing on the wall.
Yeah. Well, and this is so I've had we're slipping into the AI conversation, which we know you and I do on occasion. It is the new
Well,
topic.
AI and technology, just because
It's a big topic. Don't, I'm not, and it's everywhere. But well, that's the whole point. It is everywhere, and it's going to be everywhere. And you, it's been, those people who've worked in technology, including I guess you and I, realize that AI, as this general leap that's gone on the last couple of years, is demonstrated to the public as now seeing what the people at the workshops at Google and
yeah,
Apple and Microsoft have been, IBM, tons of places have been knowing that's going on anywhere. And buried in the search algorithm is artificial intelligence, but maybe in a brute force sense rather than in this generative sense, which we have now.
yeah,
So that's the nice leap. But the that the the hope is that frees people up um, to do other work, meaningful work.
yeah.
And I had one of my VC friends. This might actually be in one of our shows because I never can remember what we talk about. But um, he has a 6-year-old. We met, I don't know, sometime during the summer, a couple months ago, and he was talking about his son, who happens to be going to school in Taiwan, and he was saying, I don't want him to be a computer programmer or any of those things.
Mm.
I want him to go into things that are creative. He said, because all of this technology is going to make people more and more and more creative. And I think there's some things that you can kind of feel are going to be happening. But I thought as a VC, he had a really interesting thing that I hadn't heard before. He may have made it up. I really don't know. And that is, he said, if you look at the world of entertainment, okay, in not too long ago, 20, 30 years ago, there were a handful of companies that and a handful of superstars that got all the money, and everybody else was down here. It's a very pointed pyramid of a lot of money was going at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And he said what technology has done in the entertainment world with the YouTube and the TikToks and the Instagrams and all of this stuff is the pyramid has been flattening out, and there's a lot of people making a lot of money that are not Hollywood or not network television or any of that kind of structure, and that they're independent. So he was saying, and it's also true in music. The DJs now get to operate the music world and make up, where you used to have a talented, one talented saxophone player. You need more now. Where he was heading with this, the VC guy, was a place where the new software that's being built, where you can make videos and movies without any humans or actors or whatnot, sort of like making music out from your computer. I mean, you can use your computer and make all the sounds and music you want. You can have all the voices you want. And as the technology comes out, that's going to be more and more the ability to make movies and have it be quality stuff, or reasonably. So that my friend was saying, with artificial intelligence, that's going to change the way the entertainment world moves forward. So I guess we'll call it a day on the show.